Good afternoon and welcome to JTV News. I am Myint Shwe.
And I'm Lisa Urbach. Today's top stories. American troops say they found chemical weapons outside Baghdad. SARS claims another victim, and it's Avril's big night at the Junos.
The American Army has moved into Baghdad and taken control of key targets, including presidential palaces. The U.S. commander said the message is clear. U.S. forces can go wherever they want in Baghdad, whenever they want. JTV Shannon Klee has the full story from Iraq.
U.S. Marines have seized Iraq's Atomic Energy Commission's headquarters, where they found unidentified substances in jars, as well as protective suits and masks. NBC reports that elsewhere in Iraq, U.S. forces have discovered 12 barrels of chemicals, which tested positive as nerve agents sarin and tabun, as well as the blister agent lewisite. NPR also reports that forces near Baghdad found missiles equipped with sarin and mustard gas, which appeared ready to fire. U.S. forces took Saddam's palace in downtown Baghdad several hours ago as the 2nd Brigade of the Army's 3rd Infantry rolled into the city. The palace is being used to hold Iraqi POWs captured in street fighting until they can be sent behind U.S. lines. However, Iraq's information minister denies that U.S. troops are advancing on Baghdad. In an impromptu news conference this morning on a Baghdad street, Mohammed Sayed al-Saha said Iraqi soldiers gave the coalition forces a lesson they'll never forget. Coalition aircraft pounded the northern Iraq city of Mosul. The earthquake-like effects could be felt 25 miles to the east. Forces hit an Iraqi Army munitions depot along with other military targets. The front lines were relatively quiet in the north as the haze impaired the work of U.S. spotters who guide the U.S. aircraft. The Iraqis did manage to get off some artillery rounds, so despite the heavy coalition airstrikes, the Iraqis may be down, but they are definitely not out.
The job of war reporting comes with harsh conditions, great danger, and the adrenaline rushes of witnessing combat. The journalists traveling alongside troops in Iraq have become known as embedded media. Their reports give television viewers a first-hand look at battle conditions, but some reporters are paying a very high price. JTV's Chris Keynes explains.
On day 20 of the war in Iraq, casualties begin to mount. War makes no distinction between soldiers, civilians, and journalists. There are over 600 journalists embedded with troops on the front lines reporting the reality of what appears to the viewing public as so surreal. 2 more journalists were killed on Monday in an attack on a U.S. communications center on the southern outskirts of Baghdad. The total number of journalists killed in the line of duty is now at 8. Over the weekend, NBC lost its star reporter David Bloom. Bloom suffered a blood clot in his lung and collapsed. He spent 3 weeks traveling with the U.S. 3rd Infantry on the road into Baghdad. Bloom faced extreme conditions of heat, fatigue, and the ever-present danger of battlefield gunfire.
Well, my understanding from the first time they called the medics to the time the medevac chopper got there was literally half an hour. And they medevaced him, he died on the chopper going out.
As the war effort continues, so too will journalists' efforts to bring the stories of the war back home. It is a job of responsibility and risk. Chris Keynes, JTV News.
In the latest development from the war, Iraqi soldiers abducted 2 Polish journalists south of Baghdad.
U.S. President George Bush will be meeting tonight with British Prime Minister Tony Blair in Northern Ireland. The 2 leaders will be reviewing the progress of the war in Iraq. They will also discuss how to award contracts for rebuilding the country after the war is over. British politicians have been complaining that the U.S. might give all the work to American contractors. However, Blair's office downplayed rumors of a rift between the 2 countries over how Iraq should be rebuilt. This is Bush's first trip abroad since the war began.
The SARS outbreak continued to affect the GTA. With an update, here is Sarah Quadri.
It's claimed its 9th victim over the weekend and continues to spread. 1 person contracted SARS after mourning a victim at this funeral home. Downtown, SARS is causing its own congestion, and caution is causing delay. And here at the Hospital for Sick Children, just to get inside the doors, the public has to go through a special SARS screening procedure. The lineup is not getting any shorter. Even those working around the hospital are feeling anxious.
I wear a mask, try to stay clear of areas that are highly contained hospitals. Fortunately, we're working here today, but try to stay clear.
At At the Bain College Medical Center, staff are directing people with concerns to the SARS clinic at Women's College Hospital, the only downtown clinic specifically for SARS. And now, with 9 reported deaths in the GTA, there's no indication of this outbreak slowing down. For JTV News, I'm Sarah Quadri reporting.
While Toronto is battling SARS, India has started the largest immunization drive ever against polio. The goal is to vaccinate 165 million of the country's children. Thousands of health workers yesterday knocked on doors in remote villages and slums where the disease is easily spread. Polio remains a problem in India because previous vaccines have been ineffective, and many of the country's Muslims have been reluctant to vaccinate their children. Muslims believe that the polio vaccine makes children impotent.
Toronto City Council is considering banning smoking room in restaurants. If the current smoking bylaw is changed, all city restaurants will be smoke-free by June 2004. Sasha Wallach reports.
There are fewer and fewer places that welcome smokers these days. Toronto City Council is planning on banning designated smoking rooms from all Toronto restaurants. If the bylaw is changed, this means that by June of 2004, all city restaurants will be smoke-free. As it stands, establishments need to identify as either a bar or a restaurant. While customers may smoke in bars, there is no smoking allowed in any restaurant unless they have an approved designated smoking area, or DSA. City Council wants to ban these rooms entirely. But restaurant owners are furious, and many came to City Hall today to voice their frustration.
In British Columbia, in 80 days, while they had this bylaw in place, January 1st, 2000, there was an $8 million loss and 730 job losses in BC, along with many other stats.
But anti-smoking advocates believe people's health is much more important than loss of revenue for restaurants.
I think that the small business owners are so caught up in their immediate profits that they don't understand that through their taxes they're paying a fortune for allowing smoking to continue. In the last few weeks, a couple of hundred people have been identified with SARS. In that same period, 200 people all year round, year after year, are identified with lung cancer. SARS has a 5% death rate. Lung cancer has virtually 100% death rate.
Health officials and restaurant owners will continue to square off at City Hall today. For JTV News at Toronto City Hall, this is Sasha Wallach reporting.
The Congo has suffered its worst single atrocity since the start of its civil war 4 years ago. Almost 1,000 people were killed last Thursday when men, women, and children sprayed 12 villages with bullets and mortar shells. The massacre occurred the day after Congo's government, rebel groups, and opposition parties signed a peace settlement. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack.
In other news, Cardinal General Emmett Scott has died. He was a man who liked to drink Irish whiskey through a straw and was the leading spokesperson for Canadian Catholics. Tiffany Sodor has the story.
Gerald Emmett Cardinal Carter, a man who attained the highest ranks of the Roman Catholic Church in Canada, has died. He was a pillar for Toronto's 1.6 million Catholics. Cardinal Carter